Hi there, it's me, Finn, and tonight, we're going to talk about something you might never have imagined. Have you ever wondered what ancient people saw in their dreams? What did they think about when the world grew quiet and the stars glimmered over the Nile? You know, most people hear about pyramids, kings, tombs, curses, but they never ask the softest question. What did they dream about? What filled their minds when the torches went out? When the air got cooler, and sleep slowly wrapped around them like linen? Well, the ancient Egyptians wrote their dreams down. Some on broken pottery, others on scrolls, and a few were etched into stone itself. And tonight, I'll tell you all about them. Let's start by subscribing.
All right.
Let's begin. It was quiet along the edge of the Nile. The kind of quiet that isn't just silence, but softness, like a sleeping cat, or the sound of papyrus brushing gently in the breeze. The water was smooth, the moon barely touched it, and in the village of Wysit, you might know it as Thebes, people were finishing their evening meals. Roasted duck, some lentils, and if you were lucky, figs soaked in honey. The torches flickered low in their holders, and in small mud brick homes, people were climbing onto their sleeping mats. Most families slept close together, mother, father, children, sometimes the grandmother too. There weren't bedrooms, just one big room, with warmth and breathing, and the sound of someone shifting in their sleep. In a house not too far from the temple, a boy named Meni was already asleep. He'd been tired from carrying water jars for the scribe all afternoon. His arms ached, but his mind was wandering. He dreamed of birds, giant white birds that whispered his name and flew over endless fields of golden wheat. Then, a door made of bronze that opened by itself. He saw his grandfather standing there, smiling without moving his lips. And then, a great cat, glowing with blue eyes, stepped forward and spoke. Now, how do we know this? Because Meni's father, Senut, was a dream interpreter, and the next morning, he carefully recorded Meni's dream on a clay shard, called an ostrakhan. He scratched it in fine black ink, writing with a calm hand. Dream of the sun, a bird whispers, a door opens, a cat speaks. This is a sign of coming knowledge. You see, the Egyptians believed dreams were messages, not always from gods, sometimes from ancestors, sometimes from the future, and they wrote them down. Over thousands of years, these little scraps survived. Some were stored in jars, others tucked into tombs, hoping to bring comfort in the afterlife. One of the oldest surviving texts about dreams comes from a papyrus now stored in the British Museum. It's simply called the Dream Book. And oh, it's beautiful. It was written during the reign of Ramesses II, more than 3,000 years ago, by a scribe named Ken-Herkhepshef. Quite a name. He copied it carefully onto papyrus, line by line, in black and red ink. Black for normal text, red for emphasis, or warnings. And this book, it didn't just record dreams, it explained them. You see, Egyptians didn't just dream and forget. They studied their dreams. They categorized them. If you dreamed of drinking beer, that was good. If you dreamed of eating crocodile meat, that meant trouble. If you dreamed your teeth fell out, that was a sign of death nearby. But wait, let's slow down here. What kind of dreams did they actually have? Let me tell you some real ones, written in those ancient, fading scripts. One dream reads, he sees himself eating and drinking with the dead. It means he will be among his loved ones again. Another, he sees himself in a boat, sailing north. It means good fortune will come from the delta. And another, he dreams of standing in the sunlight. It means he will be protected by Ra, the sun god. Can you imagine that? Going to sleep, knowing that your dreams might be messages, that they matter, that someone, maybe your mother or the temple scribe, would help you understand them. There was peace in that. In temples, priests would sometimes hold special dream rituals. This was called incubation. People would come and sleep inside the temple, on a mat of straw. The room would be dark, cool, and silent. They might place an offering before the statue of a god, Thoth perhaps, the god of wisdom, or Serapis, the god of healing. And in the morning, a priest would listen to your dream. Imagine this: you're a farmer, your back hurts, your wife tells you that maybe the gods can help, so you walk for hours, until you reach a temple near the edge of the desert. The priest welcomes you. He gives you cool water, you wash your feet, say a prayer, and lie down in the sacred room. The room smells like incense, an old papyrus, and then, sleep comes. You dream of a jackal, you dream of a red flower, you hear a voice, your own voice, saying your childhood name, and when you wake up, the priest is there, nodding slowly. He knows what it means. And then there were children, ah yes. So many soft, innocent dreams. One ostracon, found near Deir el-Medina, the village of tomb builders, had the scribbled notes of a child's dream. The child had seen himself flying above the pyramids, laughing, flying. How calm that must have felt. And his father, a stone cutter, wrote, "This means the child will rise in life and be joyful." Not all dreams were peaceful though. Some were strange. One dream said, he sees himself with a head of clay. It means he must avoid anger. Another, she sees herself walking on fire. It means her words are powerful. But the scrolls, they never judged. They simply noted, like a whisper, recorded in ink. Let's move a little from homes and temples to the palace. Yes, even pharaohs dreamed, and when they did, it was written with the highest care. There's a story about Thutmose IV, who ruled around 100 BCE. One day, he fell asleep near the Sphinx. The wind was warm, the sand gentle, and in his dream, the Sphinx spoke. It said, "Clear the sand from around me, and I will make you king." He woke up, startled, inspired, and later, he became pharaoh, just as the dream said. This story was carved between the paws of the Sphinx, and it's still there. Imagine dreaming, and then seeing your dream, etched into stone, for thousands of years. That's how seriously they took dreams. And then, there were dreams before death. When an elder felt their time was near, they often dreamed of doors, or rivers, or soft fields of reeds, and that's no accident. In Egyptian belief, the afterlife, called the Field of Reeds, was a mirror of life, only calmer. There was no pain, no hunger, just peace. So if you dreamed of standing in a golden field, with birds singing gently in the air, it meant you were close, and it wasn't scary, it was peaceful. Tonight, we've only just opened the first page of these dreams. Scrolls and shards and stones, whispering across time. They dreamed of animals, of doors, of the sun, of strange flowers, of sailing quietly across the river. Dreams of the afterlife, dreams of healing, dreams of children laughing. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if they dreamed of us, just as we now dream of them. And tomorrow night, we'll return to more dreams, deeper dreams, stranger ones, ones from queens, from priests, from potters and dancers and guards, because they wrote them all down. Until then, slow breath. And just beyond the glow of the oil lamp, the sky had darkened fully. The temple walls breathed with silence. Far from the noise of market stalls and chattering neighbors, the people of Thebes drifted off, one by one, into their hidden worlds. Worlds that we, even thousands of years later, still catch glimpses of, through crumbling ink on flaking papyrus. And not just the powerful dreamed. The servants, the musicians, even the embalmer's apprentice, each one closed their eyes under the same stars, and dreamed. One scroll tells us of a woman named Huyat, who served in the House of Life, the place where sacred texts were copied and stored. One night, she dreamed she was walking barefoot across blue lotus petals, floating on the Nile. The water was warm. Her feet never sank, and in the distance, she heard a flute, just a soft tune, not sad, not happy, just floating. The next morning, she told her sister, And her sister. She smiled and whispered, "That means peace is coming." And then the dream was recorded. One more line added to the many. It's odd, isn't it? They wrote down dreams as if they were as important as laws, and to them, they were. You see, in Egyptian belief, the soul was made of many parts. Not just one spirit. There was the Ka, your life force. The Ba, your personality, often shown as a bird, with a human head. And when you slept, the Ba wandered. It left your body. It traveled. Sometimes, it went to the heavens, sometimes to the underworld, and sometimes, just across the village to speak to someone else's Ba. And when two people dreamed the same dream, that was something special. One story speaks of two brothers, Akmin and Tepi, who dreamed of the same lion. On the same night, they described it the same way, golden, silent, watching from a tall rock. When their father heard this, he brought them to a local scribe. The scribe took it as a message. The lion meant power, and the rock meant family. He told the father, "Keep your sons close. Great things may come, but only if they remain one heart." Even dreams had lessons. And then there were the temple dreamers. In Karnak, the great temple complex that once buzzed with prayers and incense, some priests devoted their lives to recording dreams sent by the gods. There was a chamber, now just fallen stone, where people came to sleep on sacred mats. They drank a mixture of herbs and wine. Not too strong, just enough to quiet the noise of the world. Then they laid down, arms by their sides, and waited for the divine to visit. It was quiet, cool. A single lamp burned at the entrance. The scent of blue lotus and myrrh filled the air. And when they fell asleep, they dreamed things no common man could imagine. One man dreamed of standing at the top of a staircase of stars. Another dreamed he became a falcon, flying beside Horus himself. Another, he dreamed of nothing. And in the dream book, nothing was sometimes the most powerful dream of all. To see blackness is to be near the hidden, the scroll says. To dream of silence is to be close to the God who does not speak. Can you imagine that? A silence so deep, it has its own meaning. There was also a young girl named Tia, whose dreams were carved into a limestone stela. Yes, carved, because her father believed she was touched by Hathor, goddess of love and music. She dreamed of harp strings glowing like moonlight, of gardens that grew in midair, of golden fish swimming through the sky. It sounds like poetry, doesn't it? Maybe it was. In fact, some of their poems were dreams. Or perhaps, dreams became poems. It's hard to say. One fragment reads, "I laid beneath the acacia tree, and Ra kissed my brow. I did not move, I did not wake, I simply floated." Another, "My mother was the river, my father was the wind. I dreamed of them before they passed." You see, Egyptians believed that dreams could connect them with the dead. It wasn't scary. In fact, it was comforting. Let's pause here. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture a small clay house. A breeze slipping through a woven reed mat. A child asleep under a linen cloth, dreaming of riding a boat made of light. That's how calm their world could be, despite the harsh desert, the labor, the politics of pharaohs and priests. At night, the people let their souls wander, and they believed those wanderings mattered. In some dreams, people became animals. One scroll describes a man dreaming of being a hippopotamus, gliding through still waters, strong but unnoticed. His wife dreamed of being a bee, dancing from blossom to blossom in a field she'd never seen before. And always, they recorded what it meant. To become a bee is to spread sweetness. To become a hippo is to guard what is yours. Some dreams were so strong, they shaped fate. One queen, whose name was lost to time, dreamed of a falcon flying into her chest. The priests declared she would bear a son who would become pharaoh. And she did. Or so the scroll claims. Whether it's true or not, maybe it doesn't matter. The belief itself was the dream. Now, do you remember the boy from earlier? Mini. He kept dreaming. As he got older, his dreams deepened. One night, he dreamed of writing with golden ink on water that didn't ripple. Another night, he dreamed of walking backward, with each step lighting a small flame. His father continued recording the dreams, until one day, Mimi became a scribe himself, and his own son dreamed too. Dreams passed down, like heirlooms, not just in stories, but in rhythm, in how one closed their eyes, in what prayers they whispered before sleep. O Nefertem, bring me gentle sights. O Thoth, guard my mind. Let the night be long, and my journey clear. A soft chant, a simple wish. They had lullabies too. Yes, even in the age of pyramids and priests, children were sung to sleep. One lullaby from a faded Astrakhan says, "Sleep, little star, Ra is near. The crocodile sleeps. You need not fear. Even the crocodile sleeps." Let's travel now, just a little north, to Memphis. There a group of philosophers, yes. Egypt had those too, believed that dreams weren't just visions, but testings. They thought the gods sent puzzles in dreams, not to confuse, but to prepare. One philosopher, Nesihiru, dreamt often. He kept a diary, written with incredible neatness. His dreams were full of numbers, patterns, repeating shapes, circles inside circles, roads with no end. He believed each dream was a test, to see if he could remain calm inside confusion. One dream he wrote about said, "I was trapped in a room with no walls. I walked and never found the door, but I was not afraid." That line, it stayed. It was copied by later scribes. It became a kind of mantra, to be calm, even when the door cannot be found. Let's take another breath. Now, you might be feeling sleepy. Maybe you're seeing images behind your eyes too. Don't worry if they don't make sense. Dreams often don't, even to the scribes, the priests, the whisperers of scrolls. They didn't try to control the dream, only understand it, even when it made no sense. To dream of fire that does not burn means transformation. To dream of fish flying in air means a visitor is coming. To dream of walking upside down means you are thinking too much. They had a phrase for this: the heart sees what the eye cannot. So, what did ancient Egyptians dream about? They dreamed of birds, of boats, of colors that changed, of family who smiled but said nothing, of walking through walls, of touching the stars, of holding the sun in their hands like a coin. And we dream too. Maybe, not so differently. Maybe you've dreamed of doors, fields, voices that don't speak but you understand them anyway. They believed dreams mattered. And even if you don't believe in the gods of the Nile, there's something peaceful in knowing that long ago, a mother sat beside her child's bed, listening closely as they described a lion with wings, or a garden under the water. And she said, that means something good. It's not the meaning, it's the listening. Slow breath. Shh, the scrolls are still there, dusty, curled at the corners, some broken, some barely readable. But the dreams, they're still dreaming, even now, and somewhere in the stillness of the late night, as the soft wind nudged the curtains of linen, and the glow of a single oil lamp shimmered across a mud-plastered wall, someone else was dreaming. In the city of Abydos, a holy place of Osiris, a woman named Nehama was resting on a thin mat of woven reeds. She had no husband, no children, just the quiet company of her memories and the humming of the sacred river nearby. She dreamed of a staircase that had no bottom. Each step she took didn't go down, it just floated further and further, higher into soft glowing clouds. A voice followed her, not threatening, not loud, just there. When she awoke she smiled. Even before her eyes opened, she didn't tell anyone, just whispered softly, "Thank you." Some dreams weren't for recording. Some were for keeping. But not all. Just beyond Nehama's home, within a temple archive, two scribes were brushing dust from an old scroll. It was cracked, but still readable, and written on it was something rarely spoken aloud. A catalogue of shared dreams. Now, what does that mean? Shared dreams were when two or more people dreamed the same thing, on the same night without knowing it. In this scroll there were 6 such events. 1. Involved 2 high priests, dreaming of a black ibis flying over the temple, dropping feathers of silver. They both described it, down to the curve of the bird's neck. Another told of 3 children, who all dreamed of walking in a garden where every tree grew upside down. And then there was the dream of a distant song, heard by 4 different merchants, none related, none living in the same part of the city. They all dreamed of the same melody, a soft, slow tune that wound through their minds like a breeze through papyrus. What did it mean? Well, the scribes didn't know, but they wrote it down anyway. That's what they always did. They didn't always need to understand. Sometimes writing it was enough. Now let's travel slightly south, to a very different setting. The worker village at Deir el-Medina. This is where the tomb builders lived. Artists, stone cutters, carpenters, pigment makers. They spent their days carving eternity into walls, painting afterlife stories, making sarcophagi sing with color and symbols. But at night, they dreamed like everyone else, and their dreams were surprisingly humble. A scribe there recorded 31 dreams over the course of a year. Some examples: I dreamt I lost my sandals and walked barefoot through the desert, but felt no pain. I dreamt my child had wings and flew away, but returned with a flower. I dreamt I drank water from a broken jar, and it never emptied. Each one feels quiet, gentle, like a whisper, not a shout. Even among the builders of eternity, dreams were soft. Some dreamed of animals. Ah yes, a very common theme. Jackals, birds, cats, but not always ordinary ones. One dream speaks of a cat with 6 tails, walking backward into a pool of gold. Another tells of a jackal that spoke in riddles, sitting beside a scribe, teaching him words from the future. Were they symbolic? Sure, but to the Egyptians, they were more than symbols. They were signs, and they taught their children how to recognize those signs. At the start of each new season, like Akhet, the season of flooding, parents would tell dream stories. Some of them weren't even true, but they carried meaning. One popular one began like this. Once, there was a farmer who dreamed of fire, but the fire did not burn. It danced, it sang, it gave warmth. And the farmer followed it, until he found a spring beneath the desert. It was a lesson. Not all things that seem dangerous. Even the pharaoh had dream interpreters. A small council, actually. Their job? To record, analyze, and advise, based on dreams, only dreams. One record from the reign of Amenhotep III tells of a dream the pharaoh had before the construction of a massive temple. He dreamed of his ancestors, seated in a row, facing away from him, silent, still. The dream priests debated its meaning. Some said it meant his past should remain behind him. Others believed it meant the gods wished for something new, a different kind of temple. He chose the second path, and that's the temple he built. Dreams, directing decisions of stone. Imagine that. Now, let's wander briefly into the realm of the more mystical. There were hidden in upper chambers of temple libraries, texts not for ordinary eyes, scrolls that described what they called the deep dreams. These weren't dreams of birds or gardens. These were long layered, trance-like visions, often induced by rituals, silence, herbs and time. A scribe named Hiryu spent 40 days in isolation during the festival of Ob. He ate little, slept on woven rushes, chanted softly to Thoth, and on the 29th night, he recorded this. I walked into a doorway that had no entrance. I saw stars swimming in bowls of oil. A woman made of mist handed me a word I did not understand. Then I awoke, and the word was gone. People still debate what that meant. But the calm, the rhythm, the silence around the vision, that was the point. Even when dreams confused, they comforted, because they told the people they were more than flesh and dust. They were part of something wider, something connected by stars, and birds, and rivers that never stopped flowing. Let's return now to something smaller. A child's dream, from a scroll kept in a jar in a merchant's home in the Fayum oasis. The boy dreamed of a mountain made of bread. He climbed it, he ate pieces as he went, and when he reached the top he shared it with his family. Ah, sweet and simple. The scribe who recorded it wrote just one word beneath the dream: enough. That's what the dream meant. Enough. Enough to eat. Enough to share. Enough to rest. Sometimes, that was the deepest kind of dream. And did they ever have nightmares? Yes, but they handled them gently. One scroll, darker than most, speaks of a man chased by shadows in his sleep. But instead of fearing them, he turned to face them, and they vanished. The scroll notes, to turn toward fear is to remove its shadow. That feels like something we still say today. Even in fear, peace can be found, if you turn slowly, and look with a quiet heart. Now, before we drift too far tonight, there's one last thing worth sharing. A final kind of dream. The returning dream. You've probably had them too. The same place, the same person, over and over. Egyptians took these very seriously. If a dream came back, it meant it had not finished speaking. One priest wrote, "I dream again of the room with no windows. I enter it nightly. Sometimes it is full of birds. Sometimes it is full of sand. But I always leave with something I did not carry in." Returning dreams weren't feared. They were studied, welcomed, they were teachers. And so, night after night, year after year, the people of ancient Egypt closed their eyes beneath woven ceilings and painted stars, and let themselves drift, softly, fully, and somewhere inside their sleep, stories grew, stories that still breathe inside scrolls and stone, just waiting for someone like you to listen. If you're still awake, well, perhaps you'll remember one of their dreams. Or maybe you're already having one of your own. Sleep well, dear dreamer. And beneath a crescent moon, curved like the sickle, the farmers used to harvest wheat. The air cooled just enough for comfort. People were shifting under their linen cloths, whispering their last words of the day. And then, it came silence. But not the cold silence of emptiness. No, this silence was warm. It wrapped itself around homes, streets, even temples. It was the kind of quiet that invited dreams. A boy named Kai sat beside his father in the courtyard. They weren't speaking, just watching the stars come alive. His father was a dream scribe, and tonight was the feast of Haka, the deity of magic and words. When the stars grew brighter, and the breath of the city slowed, Kai's father handed him a small reed brush, and said only, "Tonight, write what you see inside." Kai didn't understand, but he would. That night, he dreamed of climbing a staircase made of books. But instead of stepping up, he wrote his way up. Each step, a story. When he awoke, he wrote, "I walked not with feet, but with thoughts. I climbed by remembering." His father smiled, nodded slowly, and placed the scroll in a clay jar. That scroll still exists, crumbled at the edges, but whole enough to be read. And it tells us more than just a dream. It tells us that the Egyptians didn't just observe their dreams. They trained for them. Yes, some temples had special rooms called House of Nightwords. There, students of Thoth, the god of writing and wisdom, learned how to sleep mindful, to enter sleep with questions, and return with answers. One tablet from the temple of Edfu says, "Sleep is not absence. Sleep is journey, and journey begins with intention." The student would lie down, not thinking of food, not of duties, just the question, a single question. Why do I fear silence? Why do I return to the same place in dreams? Why does the bird always fly west? And when they awoke, they would write whatever came, even nonsense, because nonsense often held more truth than sense. A dream might say, "The feather that floats downstream still reaches the ocean," and the student would say, "Ah, yes, that means I must stop resisting the current." Was it true? Maybe, maybe not, but in calmness, even unsure things feel true. And while the temples taught dreaming as an art, the villages, they treated dreams as gifts. Every new moon, Women would gather near wells or shaded groves and share their latest dreams. It wasn't gossip, it wasn't superstition, it was ritual. One woman might say, "I dreamed my husband returned from war, but he had no voice." Another might whisper, "I dreamed my daughter flew above the date palms." And the others, they wouldn't analyze, they'd just nod, listen, offer bread. Because sometimes, the most sacred thing isn't the answer, it's being heard. Now let's wander into the house of a royal nurse named Hinet. She lived during the reign of Hatshepsut. Her role was important, raising children of the palace, teaching them to walk, eat, and yes, sleep. She had a collection of small papyri, nearly 20 of them, filled with the dreams of the children she cared for. Some were only 2 lines. He dreamed of a golden cat that chased away the wind. She dreamed of her father turning into a tree. Others were long. One scroll says, "The boy dreamt of a ladder made of light. He climbed it. At the top was his mother, waiting. She touched his head. He cried, but did not fall." Hinet kept these dreams. She never gave them to priests, never buried them, just kept them. We only know this because archaeologists found them tucked inside a wooden box, wrapped in soft linen, beside her burial mat. Dreams, as treasured as jewelry. But even outside the world of scribes and temples and palaces, dreams mattered. Fishermen dreamed. So did thieves, and bakers, and barge pilots. One fisherman, named Yehudi, recorded his dream onto the inside of a broken bowl. He wrote, "The river spoke. It said, 'Your net is empty because your heart is heavy.'" The next morning, he went fishing, and caught more than he ever had. Coincidence? Maybe, but to him, it meant the dream was true, and that was enough. There's something beautiful about the way they accepted dreams. They didn't expect every dream to be a prophecy, but they never ignored them either. They understood that sleep was a second life, a slow one, a quieter one, but still, life. Now, let's return to the dream book. The famous scroll, copied by Koran-Herkepshef. It categorized over 100 types of dreams. Some were good, like dreaming of catching a large fish. Fortune is near. Dreaming of walking beside your father. Your path is clear. Dreaming of holding a flower that does not wilt. Love will remain. Others were troubling, like dreaming of teeth falling. Illness is near. Dreaming of eating salt. Betrayal may come. Dreaming of a house with no doors. You are not being honest with yourself. But even in the troubling ones, there was no harshness, only caution. Dreams weren't punishments. They were reminders. A whisper from the inside. One little-known scribe, named Mekhet, once wrote, "I do not dream for answers, I dream for mirrors." That line was etched into a doorway, his sleep chamber in fact, because he believed each dream reflected something, not from the gods, but from the soul itself. And each time he entered sleep, he believed he stepped into a temple made of clouds and memory. A temple no one else could see, but one he walked through with bare feet. That's soft, that's peaceful, that's dreaming. Now let me tell you of one final place, the Temple of Serapis, near Alexandria. Later in Egyptian history, this temple became famous for its healing rituals through sleep. People came from far away, illnesses, sadness, confusion. They didn't bring gold or grain. They brought questions. The priests would give them a small meal, a sip of herbal wine, and a mat in a dark chamber. And then, nothing, no advice, just sleep. The next morning, the dream would be the diagnosis, and often, the healing. One woman dreamed she walked through fog and found a garden where she lay down and fell asleep again. She awoke, not in the dream, but in life, without pain in her legs for the first time in years. She left a note. "The God did not touch me, but my dream did, and that is enough." Over and over, we find this. Dreams didn't need to make sense. They only needed to be felt. Even when the ink fades, even when the scrolls break, even when the temples are rubble, the dreams, well, those still hum in the silence of ancient stone, waiting, still soft, still patient, still dreaming. If you've made it this far, then maybe you're not just listening to history, you're dreaming alongside it. And maybe that's what they wanted all along. And just as the stars dimmed, and Ra began his silent journey through the underworld, another pair of eyes closed, not in fear, not in haste, but in surrender. Her name was Setapi, a weaver from the village near Maidum. Her days were long, her hands stiff from pulling thread after thread through the wooden loom. But her mind never tired, because every night when her hands stopped, her soul began. She dreamed often, soft dreams, long ones, ones that didn't shout, they whispered. One of her dreams was written down by her daughter. Years after Setapi had passed, it said, she stood beneath a tree whose leaves were silver coins. The wind blew, and none fell, and she smiled. That's all, but the daughter wrote beneath it. She always said, the best dreams don't need more than one picture. Peaceful, isn't it? A dream of enoughness. And that's something the ancient Egyptians valued. Not excitement, not chaos, but balance. Their entire world, every god, every temple, every ritual was built around Maat, the principle of harmony, of order, of what is just enough. And even their dreams followed that rhythm. If a dream was too bright, too loud, too jumbled, the scribes would say it was a restless vision, not necessarily bad, but imbalanced. They preferred the dreams where nothing too grand happened. Just, I walked into a house, and sat. No one spoke. The light was soft. I awoke. Isn't that kind of lovely? Even the gods, they believed, preferred peace in dreams. But what of the gods themselves? Did the Egyptians ever believe the gods dreamed? Strangely, yes. Some texts, few, and hidden deep in philosophical commentary, suggest that Ra, the sun god, dreamed the world into being. One version says, before light, Ra dreamed of a lotus. From its center, a sound. From the sound, time. From time, the Nile. Another text claims, when Ra sleeps, men forget. When he wakes they remember. It's not loud mythology. It's soft cosmogony, quiet creation, because if dreaming brought the world, then dreaming could keep it whole. And that brings us to a story rarely told. There was once a priestess named Naya. She served at the temple of Nath, a lesser-known goddess of wisdom and weaving. Naya was gifted, not in visions, but in remembering. She remembered every dream she had, down to the color of walls, the feel of wind, even the number of steps she took inside them. She recorded them not on papyrus, but on fabric, wove them into cloths. Every thread was a line, every knot, a detail. One cloth still survives, kept in a museum basement, catalogued as ritual textile. Unknown function, but the pattern, if you trace it slowly, shows a path, a house, a boat, a bird, a star. No labels, no explanations, just a dream. They say the priestesses of Neith believed the loom and the soul were connected. To weave was to remember, and to remember a dream was to stay close to the gods. Let's drift now toward a quieter idea, one that appears in only a handful of texts. The idea that sleep and death are brothers. Yes, but not in a frightening way. No, to them death wasn't an end. It was a longer sleep, and dreams, a short visit to that same quiet space. The Book of the Dead, which wasn't actually a single book, but a collection of spells, includes this line, "Let me sleep the sleep that refreshes, and return as the Ba, soaring on wings of thought." The Ba, again, that little bird with the human head, always flying, always returning. It's comforting. Even in death, they dreamed. There's a coffin from the 18th dynasty, painted in deep blues and golds. On its inner lid is a passage. In my dreams I sat beside the lake that does not dry. I held a lotus that did not fade. I listened to silence that did not frighten. Some say the person who lay within had requested that, not as a spell, but as a reminder. Even in the next world, peace follows the sleeper. Let's return now to someone small, a stable boy, probably named Haremheb. He wasn't a scribe, he couldn't write, but his older sister, who served in the house of a noblewoman, wrote down his dreams. he once told her. I was running, but my feet didn't touch the ground, and I heard your voice calling me, but you weren't there. His sister wrote, it means trust, that he still follows even when he does not see. Simple, right? But there's power in that. Dreams of love, of memory, of faith without vision. They had a saying, to sleep is to visit the invisible. Ah, that gives such softness to the night. Minist. Now, let's pause for a moment. Feel the silence around you. That hush, that space between sounds, is what the Egyptians believed the gods used to speak. Not loud voices, not thunder or fire, but silence. That's why dream chambers were built with thick walls. No windows, no candles, just calm. One temple even had padded stone floors, lined with tightly woven straw mats, to absorb even footsteps, because noise steals the dream, they wrote, and that, feels true even now. So, what do we make of all this? Dreams written in scrolls, stitched into cloth, painted onto coffins, carved into temple walls, left in broken bowls, hummed in lullabies, whispered by lovers at dusk. Dreams, not as escape, but as maps. Maps to what? Not to treasure, but to understanding, to stillness, to self. A dream, to the ancient Egyptian, wasn't just something that happened to you. It was something you did. Every night, the soul set out. Sometimes it wandered. Sometimes it learned. Sometimes it just rested in places no waking mind could find. But always, always, it returned. And you're dreaming now too, perhaps. Not with visions, not yet, but with thoughts soft enough to float. And maybe, tonight, when your eyes fully close, and your body stills, you'll find yourself standing beneath a tree with silver leaves, or walking into a house with no doors, or riding a boat, carved from the moon. And if you do, you'll be dreaming just like they did. Softly, gently, like wind over sand, like reed tips brushing a still river. Like silence, with wings, and the winds that touched the edges of the pyramids tonight felt warmer, like a sigh from the desert itself. The kind of night that pulls even the most alert minds gently into sleep. Somewhere in a small desert hamlet east of Luxor, a girl named Kennet lay curled beside her grandmother. Her hair smelled of dust and date sugar. Her eyes fluttered as her dreams began, and nearby her grandmother whispered to no one, "May her soul rise softly," because in this village, it was believed that when someone slept, their spirit bird, would float gently from their body and fly, not far, just enough. The dream wasn't just a vision, it was a journey. Now, that the little bird with a human head, was painted on tomb walls, etched into mirrors, even shaped into amulets. But it wasn't just an image, it was a belief that you were more than what you looked like, and sleep proved it. Some dreamers even described, in scrolls, what it felt like to watch themselves from above. Not scary, not strange, just gentle detachment. One scribe named Neptu wrote, "As I slept, I rose like smoke. I saw myself below, still. I floated over the courtyard, the palms, and then returned." It's soft, right? No panic, no confusion, just movement, like a leaf caught in a soft breeze. And that image, of the soul lifting, became a major part of funerary spells. But interestingly, it also became part of bedtime rituals. Some parents, before sleep, would whisper to their children, "Fly gently, don't forget your way back." Imagine that, sleep not as absence, but as travel. Every child became a voyager. Every pillow a dock, every breath, a sail. Even now, you can almost feel it, can't you? The air slowing, the thoughts softening, the dream pulling. Let's wander now to a place not made of stone, but of silence. There was a practice among some desert hermits. Men who withdrew from society to live near sacred springs, or in carved caves. They believed that silence itself was the truest form of dreaming. They would lie awake perfectly still, and allow dreams to appear not in sleep, but in the edge of waking. This half-dream was sacred. One scroll, written in faint uneven lines, says, I did not close my eyes. But still I saw the temple. Still I heard the bell. Still I tasted the wind. A waking dream. A soft mirage. A space between now and never. And they believed that was where the gods whispered most clearly. Back in the towns and cities, dreams continued to ripple gently through daily life, even in court cases. Yes, if someone had a recurring dream involving harm, betrayal, or theft, they could speak of it to temple judges, not as evidence, but as mood. One case from the Karnak archives includes a line: "The plaintiff has dreamed 3 nights of falling stairs and broken jars. Let us consider that his spirit has been disturbed." So the judge ordered the case delayed until the man's dreams changed. So tonight, if your eyes feel heavy, let them be. Let them close. Let your own your own soft spirit, lift gently from your chest and drift over rivers, through stars, into a house with no roof and no floor, just warmth. And there, may you meet the dreams of those who dreamed before you, not in words, not in visions, but in stillness, pure, golden stillness, the kind only the ancient Egyptians truly understood. And somewhere, far past the Nile, beyond the reeds and crocodile temples, where the earth turns dry, and the sky becomes an ocean of stars, there is a silence, so old, so still, it can only belong to dreams. And there is a scroll, delicate as a moth wing, found near Abydos, inside a sealed clay jar no taller than your hand. It belonged to a woman named Iset Nofret. She was not a priestess, not a noble, just a maker of bread. Her writing is small and careful, almost hesitant, like she didn't want to disturb the papyrus. But what she wrote has stayed with me. She said, "I dreamed of a field I had never seen. There was no wind, no sun, only warmth. And my sister, who died young, stood there smiling. She gave me a cup of water. I drank it. I awoke. That's it. No gods, no judgment, no strange animals or cryptic riddles, just one person, reaching another, through sleep." Isn't that soft? In fact, many Egyptians believed dreams were a way to visit the dead. Not always, not every night, but when the air was right, and the body light enough, the Ba could pass into the shadow world, and return, with memory. A boy named Paheri once wrote, "Last night my grandfather sat beside me. He showed me how to carve wood again. His hands were warm. He laughed. I cried in my sleep." That scroll was found in a basket of children's things, toys, shoes, a slingshot. Maybe Paheri only dreamed, or maybe that was a real meeting, a quiet reunion, one night long enough to say, "I remember." But dreams weren't always from the soul. Sometimes they believed they came from the gods themselves, especially Thoth. You know Thoth, the one with the ibis head, the scribe of heaven, the god of wisdom, time and dream. They said if you slept with a certain amulet beneath your pillow, a tiny statue of Thoth, holding a scroll, your dreams might be clearer, deeper, even helpful. A merchant named Amu-Numhat kept such an amulet wrapped in goat leather. His diary, still visible on flaking papyrus: "Slept with Thoth last night. Dreamed of a road not yet traveled. I took it. Today I sold my first shipment to Nubia." Coincidence? Maybe. But he believed, and that is what gave the dream its power. It's also said that temples had dream priests, not for interpreting, but for catching. They'd lie in sacred rooms, sometimes for days, fasting, listening, waiting, and when the dream came, they'd rise at once, dip their reed into ink, and write. No questions, no changes, just dream to scroll, like water into clay. Some of these dream scrolls are chaotic. One says, "The cow turned into a woman, then into a shadow. I was a fish, then fire, then only dust." Another, "I walked backward through time. The sun set into the Nile, and a child caught it in a bowl." There's no meaning really, but maybe there doesn't need to be. Maybe the dream itself is the meaning. Like a breath, you don't have to understand it. You just take it in, and let it go. Now let's walk slowly toward a tomb. One not for a king, but a man named Ka. He was an architect, a maker of tombs for the nobles. And when he died, his tomb was already prepared. He had designed it himself. Inside, dozens of small artifacts, tools, statues, food, and a folded cloth. On it, written in faint ink, "May I dream always of my wife, of our garden, of the peach tree and blossom." That's all, and it tells you something. Even men who built death chambers still longed for dreams, soft ones, ones full of memory and petals. And when we look at the common folk, the potters, the water carriers, the servants, we find even they left fragments behind. A pot shard, dug up near Aswan, has this etched in the back: "I see blue in my sleep. The sky moves. It never ends." Just that. But it's so beautiful because no one told him to write it. He just wanted to. Even the poor dreamed with the same richness. Because the sky didn't care who you were. It showed itself to everyone. And it's important to know, they didn't fear their dreams. They didn't chase them either. And what about animals? That may surprise you. But the Egyptians believed animals dreamed too. Especially cats. They watched them sleep, twitching, curling, growling softly, and wrote about it. A priest from Bobastis once scribbled, "The cat dreams of her other life. In sleep, she returns to her mother. In sleep, she hunts stars." Poetic, yes, but also revealing, because dreams to them were not human property. They belonged to the living spirit in all things. Birds, crocodiles, even trees. One record from a garden keeper near Memphis reads, "Dreamed my fig tree spoke. Said it missed my voice. I watered it at dawn." Simple? Yes. But again, meaningful. Dreams were connections. Between worlds. Between lives. Between species. Even between breath and stone. And sometimes, dreams weren't about places or people, but about sounds. A musician named Pentu once described this. "I dreamed of a drum. Its sound was not loud, but it beat like a second heart." He believed it meant that the gods were listening. Another dreamer, Amos, said, "The wind sang a song I knew as a boy, but no one else remembered." He cried when he woke up. Music was powerful in dreams. Because the Egyptians thought sound carried memory, that melody was the most fragile form of truth. That's why many dreamed of harps, of flutes, of voices, without mouths. And let's return now, to the temples, where dreams were not only encouraged, they were designed. Yes, certain rooms called night houses were built deep inside temple walls. No windows, no color, just stone and straw mats. Pilgrims came here not to sleep, but to dream correctly. They'd lie down, whisper a question to the stone, then close their eyes. And wait, the scrolls from these rooms don't record answers, only the dreams themselves. A blue ladder, I climbed it with no fear. A jar of honey spilled across sand. My hands were sticky. A lion with a face like my father's. No explanation. No priest interpreted them. Because dreams were sacred, but personal. Only the dreamer could decide what it meant. There's something calming about that. No pressure, no puzzle, just permission to drift, to float, to feel something you can't describe. It makes sleep feel safe. Now let me tell you about Keket. She was a potter's wife, had 6 children, lived far from the temples, never held a scroll, never saw a god statue up close, but she dreamed, every night, and she told her dreams to her neighbor Nemio, who painted them in tiny images on the sides of broken pots. More than 30 were found. One shows a bird landing on a sleeping woman's face. Another shows a moon being cradled in someone's arms. One, perhaps my favorite, shows a staircase that turns into a river. Underneath it in faint red ink, her favorite dream. Keket never wrote a word, but her dreams still speak. And they say so much. They say that dreaming didn't belong to the powerful. It belonged to the quiet, the dusty, the forgotten. And even the scribes, those educated minds who copied laws and spells and tax scrolls, even they dreamed, but rarely about power. They dreamed of quiet libraries, a feather drifting through ink, rooms full of unread books. One even wrote, "Dreamed I was a scroll, unopened. I felt no sadness, only waiting." Maybe that's what dreams are, little scrolls, soft ones, that open only at night, and close again by morning. There's a funerary mask from the 12th dynasty, found in the ruins of El Lahon. Inside the mask, not on the outside, but behind the eye sockets, someone wrote, "Dream only soft," not a name, not a spell, just that, like a whisper left for the dead. Even when breath ends, the dream doesn't have to. And perhaps, even now, as you lie there, your ba is stretching its wings. Maybe it's not ready to fly just yet, but it's listening, waiting, feeling the soft pull of silence, of sand, of stillness. Maybe tonight, your soul will walk a golden path through a moonlit garden. Maybe it'll meet someone you've forgotten, or someone who hasn't been born yet, or no one. Just light, soft, endless light. And that would be enough. Because the ancient Egyptians never asked for grand dreams, only calm ones, true ones, ones that felt like memory, even if they'd never happened. So rest now, not because the world demands it, but because your soul deserves it. And the stars tonight, they're just quiet enough to listen to. That's something the Egyptians believed too. They thought stars weren't just light, they were ears, listening to your sleep, not judging, not spying, just listening. One scroll, very old, cracked almost in half, says, "The stars do not shine only. They wait for the dreams we carry." Isn't that soft? Not even the sky was in a hurry. Let's drift back into a smaller place now. A room no wider than your bed. A house near the Nile. A man, older now, called Jehudi. Same name as the god Thoth, though he wasn't a priest. He was a boat repairer, his fingers stained with tar and river water. Each night, he washed them in a bowl of lotus-scented water, and sat on the edge of his mat, and waited for sleep. He kept no scrolls, but he whispered his dreams out loud before the sunrise. His grandson remembered one. Grandfather said he dreamed he was a boat with no sail, floating, but not afraid, because the river knew where to go. That says so much, doesn't it? You don't always need direction. Sometimes, you just need trust. Trust in the sleep, trust in the silence. And what if we told you that even dreams were offered? Yes, just like bread, or incense, or milk. The ancients believed dreams were valuable, sacred, and sometimes worth giving. Some rituals asked you to sleep on behalf of someone else. A mother might dream for her sick child. A widow might sleep near her husband's tomb to pass him a message. And if a person couldn't dream, if their sleep was empty for too long, they'd ask a dreamer to lie beside them, to bring the dream back. It's written in one old scribal note. Teti's sister lay beside him for 3 nights. Her dreams came. He slept without fear. Not mystical, not grand, just kindness. And in the temple of Hathor, the goddess of love, music, joy, they believed dreams could be. Sweet. Yes. Sweet like figs, soft like honey. Not all dreams were mysterious or sacred. Some were simply lovely. A scroll from a singer named Nabat says, "Dreamed of a garden where music bloomed. The reeds played themselves. The fish danced. I laughed in my sleep." And next to it, a friend had added a note. "Your dream made me smile." Even dreams could be gifts. Little ones, folded in silence, and passed from soul to soul. Let's walk slowly now into a deeper chamber, carved far beneath the temple of Khnum, in Esna. It's not marked on the outer walls, but it exists. A sleep chamber, long abandoned, echoes softened into the stone. Inside, found in the dust, was a thin wooden panel, written in smooth, slow script. Do not fear the shape of your dream. Even shadows hold light. They believed, you see, that even unpleasant dreams had value. Not warnings, not punishments, but reflections, like water that looks strange only because the light is different. They did not fear nightmares. They sat with them. They breathed with them. A man named Hapu, after dreaming of falling endlessly, wrote, "I fell, and then, I floated, and that is when I woke." He was smiling when he told it. Now, there's something gentle about that, isn't there? The idea that no dream is wrong, just misunderstood. So what did they do with dreams? They couldn't understand. They let them go. Or, sometimes painted them. There's an entire wall from a craftsman's hut, etched with overlapping images. A fish in a tree. A river in the sky. A woman with bird's feet carrying a mirror. No writing. Just dream pictures. Layered. Fading. Like memory, wrapped in moonlight. And even the youngest among them dreamed with purpose. A girl named Bakht bore a necklace with 7 beads. One for each dream she remembered. Her mother tied a new one each time Bakht spoke of something seen in sleep. The last bead was green. Beside it, scratched faintly into a pot's rim, the dream where the water laughed. What does that mean? No one knows. But isn't it beautiful? And here's something few remember. The Egyptians believed that sleep was not just a physical act. It was a ritual. They didn't just go to bed. They prepared. They washed their feet. They burned oil, sometimes myrrh, sometimes lotus. They spoke names out loud, names of those they loved, or feared, or lost. And then they would lie down and whisper, "Open the door, my dream," as if knocking, as if entering a temple. They understood something we often forget, that dreams aren't interruptions of waking life. They're extensions of it. The soul never sleeps. Only the body does. And when that body rests, the dream begins walking. Not fast, not loud, just one step at a time. One moment after another. Like this. And maybe now, as you lie wherever you are, still, breathing, listening, maybe you feel your dream beginning to open too. Maybe it's a slow door. Maybe it's a soft voice. Maybe it's just the image of a river. Or the scent of burning oil. Or a bird without wings. Or a sky with no top. Whatever it is. Let it come. Let it float. Let it whisper. Because the ancient ones, they're still dreaming. And maybe tonight, so are you. And now the world has quieted. Even the winds across the Nile are slow tonight. Just a hush. Just a breath. Like someone waiting for their own dream to arrive. There's a scroll, hidden for centuries under the floor of a weaver's house, that begins with the line, "Sleep is the second sunrise." Isn't that lovely? Because where the sun rises with heat and color, the dream rises with stillness. And the Egyptians, yet they understood this, in a way that still feels warm today. Let's walk together through a little-known temple, near Elephantine Island. It isn't grand. Its walls are soft from rain. Its ceiling open to the sky. But in the corner, there's a small alcove. Inside it, carved in tiny precise lines, "Let no harsh thought follow me into sleep." It's a kind of prayer, one of many, because before sleeping, some Egyptians would speak small dream requests. Not to command the dream, but to shape the heart for it. A man named Padi Kansu kept a little board beside his bed. Each night, he'd scratch a phrase into it with a reed. Not long ones, just fragments. "May the dream be gentle. Let me hear my daughter's voice again. I ask for stillness." Every morning he'd wipe it clean. Not because it wasn't important, but because the dream didn't need to stay. It had served its purpose. Isn't that peaceful? And when we open the Book of the Dead, not a scary book, but a beautiful one, we find that even in death, the ancient Egyptians imagined dreams. They described a world of glowing trees, floating bridges, doors that opened into nothing, or everything. In one spell it reads, "I sleep, but I do not vanish. I dream in the west, and return each morning." To them death was not sleep, but sleep was a rehearsal for peace. Now, if you wandered into a village near Abydos, on a moonless night. You might find something interesting. The children there would sit outside after sunset, telling each other what they hoped to dream about. One girl, Tennefer, wished for this: a room full of soft animals. And I am one of them. A boy called Raui said, I want to walk into the stars. Just keep walking. No walls. And none of the adults stopped them. In fact, they listened, because in that part of Egypt, dreams were passed down. A grandmother might give her grandchild a phrase to whisper before sleep. Think of the color blue. That's where I'll meet you. It gives you chills, doesn't it? Not from fear, but from something softer than that. Something like love, pressed into silence. And what about the ones who couldn't dream? It happened, and when it did, there was no shame, just assistance. The dreamless would visit small sanctuaries and ask for dream bowls. These were handmade, filled with herbs and ash, and placed under the sleeper's bed. One woman, Seret, wrote, after 2 nights with the dream bowl, I saw again a field of grain, my mother's hands, the rain. No spells, no magic, just trust in the rhythm of the old ways. Sometimes, they even believed that places could dream, that a house, or a statue, or a temple might carry memory, and whisper it into your sleep. A scribe named Bekenkansu claimed to have dreamed the story of a ruined column, its life, its fall, its forgotten architect. After sleeping beneath it for 1 night, he said, I did not imagine, the stone remembered. Isn't that, beautiful? That memory could live in silence? That places might want to be remembered too. And it brings us to a delicate idea, the belief that some dreams were not yours, that they arrived from others, someone far away, or long dead, or not yet born. One scroll, found in the tomb of a dancer, says, I dreamed of a child I did not know, but she held my hand, and we smiled like sisters. Another, from a fisherman, he said his name was Sethemheb. I have never met this man, but he thanked me for saving him. These aren't visions. They're borrowed dreams. A soul passing through your night for just a moment, softly, without harm, just to visit. It's worth wondering, who's dreamed of you? Has your face ever shown up in someone's silence? In a temple dream? In a child's sleep? We'll never know, but isn't it comforting that you might be part of a dream you'll never see? And this idea of shared dreaming grew into gentle rituals. In some towns, entire families would sleep together in rows, just to keep their dreams warm. They believed proximity made dreams echo. One family wrote on the wall near their sleeping room, if you see the horse again, tell me. I saw it too. Dreams were private, but never lonely. They moved between people, like scent, like water, like breath. And every now and then, a dream would ripple outward, become something greater. A boy named Mena dreamed of birds flying in a perfect circle. He told his teacher painted it on a wall, and that wall still stands, still holds the birds, still circling, not because it mattered, but because it felt real. It felt like truth. Sometimes dreams are truth, just not the kind you can explain, only the kind you feel. So maybe tonight, your soul is waiting for a dream that isn't yours. Maybe it's one shared long ago, maybe it's brand new, maybe it's just a color, or a song, or the warmth of someone you miss. Maybe it's nothing, and that's okay too, because in ancient Egypt, silence was never empty. It was always holding something. And so is your sleep, so is your breath, so is this moment, soft, still, and open. Let it be. Let it begin. Let it float. And when the sky goes black without fear, and when the earth stops asking questions, that's when the ancient ones said dreams came closest. Not as visions, not as warnings, but as visitors, just long enough to be remembered, softly. There's something I've been wanting to show you. It's a scarab, no bigger than your thumb, made of lapis lazuli, smooth, deep blue like the night before the sun. They found it inside the wrappings of a woman named Naya. On its underside, one sentence scratched by hand. To dream, without forgetting. That's it. No spells, no commands, just a wish. A wish that the soul could remember what it saw, while wandering. Because the Egyptians didn't just believe dreams had meaning, they believed dreams were memory before memory. You see, some thought that when we sleep, we remember forward. We dream things that have not yet happened. Not as prophecy, but as distant feelings, soft touches, warm moments, familiar strangers. And when we wake, the dream stays. It hides beneath the ribs, like a whisper, a shape in water. There's a papyrus, kept in the Cairo Museum, fragile like dried skin. It records what appears to be a dream diary of a priest's apprentice. But, the dreams written down, they're not hid. They're labeled, dream of the cat, dream of the wind, dream of the pot. One reads, the stone dreamed it was light, then woke as a statue. He believed everything dreamed, not just people, but walls, fire, dust, even the Nile. And that's not as strange as it sounds, because to the Egyptians, everything was alive in some way. And where there is life, there is dreaming. Let that sit with you for a second. Even your breath, the one you're taking now, may carry a small dream inside it. Even silence has a pulse. Now, let's visit a place most never see. A tomb, not of gold, not of royalty, but of a dream interpreter. Yes, they existed, not fortune tellers, but sleep listeners. People who would sit with you in the morning, pour you tea, and ask you, what did the dream feel like? Not what it meant, but what it left behind. One such interpreter, an old man named Sabu, recorded hundreds of dreams brought to him. He never answered with certainty, only suggestions. He'd say, a white crocodile, that's not danger, that's forgotten strength. Or, if you saw no path in the dream, it may mean you're walking one now. He never claimed magic. He claimed attention, that dreams just want to be heard, like wind through reeds, or breath in a room. Just her, and the dreams came in all shapes. One woman described floating above her own house, watching her family sleep, hearing them whisper her name though no one spoke. She said, I felt loved, even in silence, especially. Another man dreamed of fireflies, circling his face, blinking in rhythm. He said, they blinked the song my mother used to hum, but she never saw fireflies in her life. Memory, wrapped in mystery, or maybe, memory that was never real, just needed. Sometimes the soul dreams of what it wishes had happened, and that's okay. Now, let's step carefully into an archive room in an old Theban school. On the wall is a painted panel, faded, but still visible, a row of children with eyes closed. Above them, not star, but question marks, and written beside it, sleep is where answers turn into pictures. That's what the teachers believed. You don't solve problems in sleep. You just look at them sideways. Let them shift. Let them float. Like, leaves on water, not reaching anywhere, just moving. And even the gods, the mighty ones, Ra, Osiris, Anubis, even they were said to dream. A scroll fragment says, Ra sleeps each night beneath the earth, and in that sleep, he dreams the sun again. They believed the rising of the sun wasn't mechanical, it was imagined by Ra in his dreaming. A cosmic breath, every morning, proof that sleep matters, that dreaming has weight. And sometimes, just sometimes, the line between waking and dreaming vanished. A scribe named Intef wrote, I walked all day today, feeling as if I was still asleep, not tired, just held, like the dream was still behind my eyes. That happens to you too, doesn't it? That floating, that half-remembrance, that strange calm that follows you for no reason. Maybe it's not nothing, maybe it's the soul, echoing a dream it still remembers. There's something the ancient ones whispered often. We sleep with two eyes closed, and one eye open. They didn't mean suspicion. They meant, the soul watches, even as the body rests. It remembers the garden, the voice, the shadow of a tree that never existed, but feels so familiar, so soft, so real, and when you wake, the memory fades, But the feeling, it stays, like the warmth of a candle that's just gone out. So tonight, as you lie wherever you are, as the lights dim, as your own eyes soften, let the dreams come without pulling, let them rise like steam, let them wander without reason. And maybe, just maybe, when you wake, you'll feel something you can't name, and smile, because somehow, your soul remembered something from long ago, or far ahead, or both, and now, the world is quieter than it's ever been. Even the temples don't whisper, even the animals don't stir, even the wind has fallen asleep. Maybe this is the moment the ancients were waiting for, the moment when the dream begins to speak, not with words, but with feeling. Let me take you now to a very small house, not royal, not sacred, just a place of rest, a courtyard with one tree, one mat, one clay lamp flickering. Inside, a woman named Iamozi, a seller of dyed linens, sits by her sleeping child. She closes her eyes, and with no words, no incense, no chant, she drifts, she dreams. Later she would tell her sister, I dreamed I was washing stars in the river. They came to me dirty, but when I let them float, they shone. That's it. No explanation, just a small story passed across a cup of barley tea. But her sister smiled, because she'd dreamed something similar once. That's how dreams lived in Egypt. Not in books, not in ceremonies, but in simple conversations. And it's here that we find something soft, something easy to forget in the modern noise. The Egyptians never rushed to understand their dreams. They didn't decode them like puzzles. They didn't demand meaning. They waited, they watched, they listened. Some dreams, they said, ripen slowly. A man might wait 10 years before his dream made sense. And when it did, he would nod and say nothing, because it wasn't about telling. It was about feeling safe. You see, in some places, like the village near Komombo, they used to whisper their dreams to the trees. Yes, not to people, to the trees, especially fig trees. They called them sleep keepers. And each morning, just before dawn, a few villagers would walk barefoot to the edge of the grove, press their palms to the bark, and whisper what they'd seen. One man, Nesafin Abjed, did this every morning for 43 years. No one ever wrote down what he said, but every tree he whispered to lived longer than the others. Coincidence, maybe. Or maybe dreams are nourishment for more than just the soul. And now, let's drift into the house of life, not a metaphor. That's what they called certain temple schools, places where medicine was taught, where scrolls were copied, but also where dreams were studied, because they believed healing wasn't only of the body, but of the sleep. One healer, Harishef, recorded this on a worn scroll corner. The woman's fever faded after the dream of blue water. Her hands were steady. She smiled again. No herbs, no chants, just the dream. Another healer claimed, I gave him papyrus to sleep on. He dreamed of shade. The cough left him. To modern ears, strange. To them, natural, because the soul, they believed, knows how to mend itself. Sleep was medicine. And when the high priests slept, they often didn't sleep alone, not physically, but spiritually. They believed that certain dreams were visitations, not from gods, but from themselves. A part of the soul that waited in the dream. They called it the Ka, or sometimes the second me. It didn't speak in voices. It appeared as shapes, birds, flames, reflections in water. One priest named Pasherempta dreamed of a shadow that followed him into the desert. No matter how fast he walked, it stayed beside him. When he turned, it turned. When he rested, it rested. He awoke, not afraid, but calm. He said, it was the part of me that remembers when I forget. What a soft idea, that there's always something inside us, watching, remembering, even when we fall apart. And there were dreams that repeated, always the same, for years, not frightening, just stubborn. A potter from Saqqara dreamed of holding a jar that never emptied. Each night, over and over, I scoop water. I pour it. It fills again. He didn't ask why. He just told it to his wife. And she nodded, because she had one too. She dreamed of walking a hallway of curtains. Each one she pulled back revealed another curtain, and another, and another. She said, "It never ends, but I'm never tired." Some dreams weren't about what you saw. They were about how you felt while seeing it. And both of them felt peace. That was enough. Let's pause for a moment. Listen, just for a second. Do you hear it? No. Good, because silence is part of the dream too. The Egyptians didn't fear silence. They worshipped it. In fact, one of their earliest dream gods, Harpocrates, was the god of silence. He's always drawn with a finger to his lips, not to hush others, but to say, "Let the dream speak before you do." A lesson we all could learn. And sometimes, yes, sometimes the dream would appear before the sleep, in a moment of stillness, in the blink between blinks. They called it the middle breath, the space just before surrender, where the body lets go, and the soul begins to rise. A merchant named Murti once said, "I dreamed while lighting the lamp. The wick flared, and I saw my sister. She kissed my hand, then it was gone. No sleep, no bed, just that moment. The door opening for a second, and then closing, but the warmth stayed." Let's return now to the beginning, not the beginning of the story, but the beginning of the night, when the oil is low, when the streets are soft with sand, when the sky forgets its shape. This is when the soul is bold, not loud, just ready. And you too, yes you, might feel it now, a tiny tug beneath your ribs. Not unpleasant, not urgent, just a suggestion, a message, maybe, or a memory, or a shape that hasn't been named yet. Let it come, let it take its time. No need to understand, just receive. The ancient ones would say, when your head is heavy, your heart is light. You're almost there now, almost beyond the waking shore. Finn is still with you, still watching the dream unfold like a scroll made of breath, and silence, and warmth. Welcome it, gently. The moon is low now, but not gone. It's waiting, like an old friend, and in that space between its light and the earth, dreams swim, quietly, slowly, no ripples, no sound. They used to believe, the ancient Egyptians, that the moon itself kept watch over dreams, not to judge, not to control, just to witness. One hymn written to Khonsu, the moon god, says, "When I sleep, your silver gaze holds my breath. My dreams are safe beneath your eyes." It wasn't fear, it was comfort, that someone, something watched over their sleep. And that's what they needed, most of all. Not meaning, not prophecy, but safety. Because sometimes, dreaming was vulnerable. When you close your eyes, you give up control, you let go. And in a world where the river could flood, where kings could vanish, where the sun sometimes hid for days, letting go was an act of faith. And yet, every night, they did it. Every night, they let go. And the dreams came. Let me show you something. In a tomb not far from Lisht, behind a sealed false door, there was a linen-wrapped tablet, and on it, only this: "Do not be afraid to see what the soul wants." It's soft advice, gentle, and so many followed it. People dreamed of their children grown, even when they had none, of oceans they'd never seen, of birds that whispered secrets, not with mouths, but by how they flew. A man called Horemheb once dreamed of a wall that never ended. When he woke, he smiled and said, "That is how long I will love her." He never married. He just dreamed. And sometimes that was enough. Did you know, there were scrolls of dream offerings? Not dreams themselves, but prayers about dreams. Before sleep, a person might light a little flame, then whisper a hope. Not always big things, just gentle ones. "Let me see my father. Let the field be green. Let me rest without weeping." Soft, honest requests. One fragment found tucked under a sleeping mat reads, "Tonight, no snakes, just wind and stars, please." Even the act of asking was sacred. Even the quiet was a ritual, and in some temples, they kept dream jars, empty pots, sealed with clay stoppers. Each one carried a name, not of a god, but of a dreamer. People believed their dreams, when told aloud, left a trace. A warmth, a scent, and those jars, they held it. One woman named Tamari had 12, each sealed on a different night of her life. None opened, no one ever dared, because the dream, once spoken, was alive, even in silence. In what of the dreams that weren't quiet? Yes, not all dreams were peace. Some were bold, they glowed red, they flew too high, they came with thunder or fire or voices, too loud to name. But even these were welcomed, because passion too has its place. The dream of rage, of longing, of grief. They did not run from it. They folded it gently and placed it beneath their pillow. One woman said, the dream was sharp, but it cut away something I no longer needed. She never explained. She didn't have to. And sometimes, they dreamed of what could never be. A lion that spoke in rhymes. A staircase that climbed into the sea. A field where every grain of wheat had a face. To us surreal. To them, sacred. Because the impossible was just another shape of truth. A child told her father, I dreamed my hands were made of sand. And when I touched you, you became light. He didn't laugh. He hugged her. Because beauty doesn't need logic. Not in sleep. Not in love. Not in dreams. And there were seasons of dreams. The elders said, some months bring color, some months bring silence. The flood season, Aket, brought dreams of water, of reunions, of laughter beneath the current. The dry season, dreams of flight, of wind, of empty glowing halls. And during Shamu, harvest, many dreamed of the dead. Not ghosts, not warnings, but embraces, conversations, smiles in doorways. A potter named Anknefer told a friend, my mother sat with me in the dream. She didn't speak. She just fixed my collar. That's all. That was enough. He woke and cried. Not in sorrow. In fullness. Because some dreams weren't about learning. They were about feeling whole. Like something missing, softly returned. And as we go deeper, deeper into the night, let's walk together through a silent hallway. Stone walls. No paintings, just carved names, each one a dreamer. Men, women, children, even animals. The temple cat, Nabu, had a name carved here too, because once, they say, she dreamed while lying atop a scroll, and when the priest opened it, he found a poem. The eyes of the night know more than the sun, but they will never speak. He said the cat wrote it. No one disagreed, not because they believed it literally, but because it felt true, felt gentle, felt right. And so we return, to stillness, to the breath that stretches wide, to the bed you lie in now, to the room around you, not the world of kings or gods or pyramids, but your world, your own soft night, your own dream rising. It may come slow, it may come strange, it may come as a whisper from a name you don't remember, but it will come, because sleep isn't absence, it's arrival, and the ancients knew that better than anyone. A dream isn't something you chase, it's something you let in. So tonight, let it in, let it float, let it fold over you like linen on warm skin. Good, very good. Fiend is still here, still listening, still holding the story. As you slip beneath it, do you feel it? That quiet around your heart, not emptiness, not loneliness, just space. The kind of space the Egyptians believed was made for dreaming. A space that invited the soul to rise, not to escape, but to return. That's something they understood better than anyone. That dreams aren't journeys away, they're journeys home. One temple scribe, Hitep, wrote, each night I go to where I was before I was born, and each morning, I return. He didn't mean death, he meant the self, the version of him that had no name, no pain, no history, just warmth and stillness. Isn't that comforting, that we might all carry that version within us, like a candle, waiting? Let me show you a strange little ritual. It didn't take place in temples, not in palaces, but in quiet kitchens. Each night, before sleep, some families would place a drop of honey on their tongue. They called it sweetening the dream. They believed that a little sweetness, just before rest, could shape the soul's journey, not to control it, but to soften its edges. A farmer once said, if the bees are calm, the dream will be calm. And if the bees were wild, then the dream might come tangled, loud, or strange, but never wrong, just necessary. And that's important, because even the uneasy dreams had purpose. The Egyptians knew this. They didn't fear them, they welcomed them. Like old guests, who'd lost their way. One woman, Mamie, dreamed every week of falling into sand, always the same. She'd sink, slowly, and then wake, covered in sweat. She told her grandmother, who said, "It means your roots are deepening, not fear, growth, even when it feels like sinking, even when it doesn't make sense." The sand wasn't swallowing her, it was holding her. Now, do you remember the scrolls we talked about? The ones tucked into corners of houses? Some of them weren't written by scribes. They were drawn, yes, dreams made into pictures. Tiny ones, circles within circles, eyes inside trees, boats floating across the sky with flowers instead of sails. And no one judged these drawings. They weren't art, they weren't proof, they were expressions. One man, a baker named Jedhor, filled an entire wall with painted suns, 47 of them, each one with a different face. His neighbor asked him, "What does it mean?" He just smiled and said, "They came while I slept. I didn't ask why." And that was enough. They also made dream songs. Little verses, soft chants. Not to perform, just to hum. Like lullabies for the soul. One found carved into a lamp base. "Let the river run slow tonight. Let the moon sit low. Let my heart forget its weight." Just that. Sung while lying down, or whispered before closing the eyes. No one needed to hear it. Not even the gods. Just the self. And some dreams weren't about visions at all. They were about feelings you couldn't name, like warmth that didn't come from fire, or motion without moving, or a voice that spoke without sound. One fisherman said, "I dreamed of being known, that's all, not seen, not heard, just known." His wife kissed his forehead and said, "Then you are already blessed." Because isn't that what we're all quietly asking for, even in sleep, to be known without needing to explain? Let's visit the temple at Dendera. Not for rituals, not for statues, but for the ceiling, high above the heads of the priests, painted in stars, is a dream map, a real one. No roads, no cities, just constellations flowing into spirals, and birds. So many birds. Some believe the priests used it to track the drift of dreams. A kind of calendar that predicted what kinds of dreams might visit during each moon cycle. And on the 13th night, the map shows a woman, lying in water, her eyes open, her hands outstretched. No explanation, just her, floating, peaceful. Maybe that's tonight, maybe that's you. They believed that soul left through the nose when you dream, not the mouth, not the eyes, the breath, because breath was life, and life was dreaming. The final breath of a dying person was treated gently, not as an ending, but as a final dream release. One priest wrote, "When I die, may my last breath carry my sweetest dream." He didn't fear it, he trusted it, like letting a bird go. And when someone passed, their loved ones didn't ask, "Where are they now?" They asked, "What are they dreaming?" Because the dream didn't stop with death. It simply changed rooms, moved into a different silence. A boy once said at his father's grave, "Tonight, I'll try to meet you again." He left a piece of honeycomb beside the stone. Not for food, but for sweetness, to help shape the path between two dreamers. We may not know what happens beyond, but we know how it feels, and sometimes that's more than enough. The night is thick now, heavy with softness. Your own thoughts are slower, the breath, longer. That's good, that's exactly where the ancients would say the ka stirs. The deeper self, not loud, not demanding, just ready. So tonight, let your sleep be quiet. Let your dreams come without chasing. Let them unfold like linen. Let them rise like incense. Let them soften like water around stone. And if the dream feels strange, trust it. If it feels familiar, rest in it. And if it feels like nothing at all, then maybe that's the deepest dream of all. Just silence, just peace, just you. Freedom is still here, still whispering, still holding the story, until your breath becomes the story itself. Sleep well. Sometimes the best part of a dream is what you never remember. just the feeling it leaves behind, like sunlight through your closed eyelids. You don't see it, but you know it's there. That's how the Egyptians thought of certain dreams. They called them shadow dreams, ones that never arrived as pictures or words, only as weight, warmth, or wind. A priest named Nabra once said, "Last night I dreamed of stillness, and when I woke, my hands were no longer shaking." That was it. No vision, no story, just stillness and peace. Let's wander now to a reed boat floating on a black canal. It's night. Two sisters lie on a cushion of woven flax. They aren't speaking, they're staring at the stars, tiny fires frozen above the world. The younger one whispers, "I want to dream of my name." The older replies, "Don't say it. Let it come to you." That was a game they played, to forget themselves before sleep, so the soul could remember them. And often, in the morning, they would wake up giggling. I was a butterfly. I was the river. I was the sky chewing on clouds. They didn't mean it literally. They meant that for a few hours, they were free from being expected. Dreams gave them permission. And freedom, yes. Freedom was one of the deepest dreams of the poor. You won't read that in royal scrolls. But in the mud walls scratched by charcoal and soot, you'll find tiny marks, birds, open gates, unchained feet. They didn't dream of palaces. They dreamed of rest. One laborer carved this on his sleeping mat. "Tonight, I want no orders. No masters, just sky." His wife drew a single circle around the words. When asked what it meant, she said, "That's the shape of sleep when you're not afraid." And then there are dreams that return, not as stories, but as places, rooms you've never seen before, but no, hallways that don't frighten you, even though you don't know what's behind the door. A potter from Aboshir told his son, "I go to the same garden every week. It has no gate, just a smell I remember." That was his favorite dream. He never picked the flowers, never even walked, just stood, breathed, smiled, and woke up feeling lighter. That's something they believed, that some dreams aren't made by us. They're made for us, by the gods, maybe, by our past selves, maybe, by a part of the soul that's braver, quieter, wiser. Almost certainly, a girl named Isit dreamed of a lion made of wind. She said it chased her, not to harm her, but to keep her moving. She'd wake up out of breath, but always safe, always stronger. She said, "The dream doesn't want me to stop," and her grandmother nodded, because she'd had that same lion once, 30 years before. Let's take a step now into a little-known temple chamber. It's not full of incense, or gold. It's full of beds, stone ones, smooth ones, raised slightly above the floor. It was a dream room, a sanctuary for those needing guidance. They would lie there, eat nothing, speak nothing, and wait for the dream. It wasn't called sleeping. It was called listening. Some stayed for hours, others for days. A man named Mersu laid there for 3 nights. On the 4th morning, he whispered, "I saw a fish leap across the sun, and I knew I had to go." He left his village that afternoon. No one asked why, because when a dream speaks clearly, you don't question it. You just bow and follow. Sometimes the dreams weren't gentle, but they were needed, like the dream of drowning. A boy named Amosi had it every full moon, sinking, always deeper, until he couldn't breathe, but every time, just before the end, he turned into a bird and soared. Over time, the dream stopped being frightening. It became rebirth, a signal that fear was temporary, that endings weren't real, just thresholds. They believed that the dream body was made of stars, not like the ones in the sky, but memory stars, moments, touches, whispers never spoken aloud. Every night the soul would gather them and spin them into a story. That's why some dreams feel like patchwork, not broken, just sewn from many quiet truths. One farmer said, "I saw my mother's hands, the scent of cinnamon, and the sun touching my knees. I don't know what it means, but I know it was mine." That's all a dream needs to be, yours. And maybe that's why the Egyptians never worried if dreams didn't make sense. Sense was for the daytime. Sleep was for feeling. Even kings, great ones, wrote this in their journals. The dream was strange. but I felt peace. So I will not fight it. Isn't that lovely, to not fight it? To not pull the dream apart, trying to name every thread. Just wear it. Let it drape over your spirit. Let it warm you. Let it pass. You're floating now, aren't you? Even if you don't feel it yet, your breath is longer, your thoughts, slower. The room around you has changed shape. You may not notice, but the dream does. It's already here, watching, waiting for you to stop trying. So it can begin, so let it begin. Let the breath slow, let the thoughts blur, let the world dissolve. You've earned this, a night that doesn't demand anything from you, not even understanding, just rest, just peace, just the quiet company of Finn. As the next dream begins without needing to be told. Do you remember the first time you felt safe while closing your eyes? For the Egyptians, that first moment, when sleep began to rise, was sacred. It was called the crossing, not into death, not into danger, just across, from waking into dreaming, from weight into drift. They imagined the body as a boat, and the mind as a river, and every night, just before the water took them, they whispered to the darkness, "Do not turn me away, O gentle sleep. Let my oars be steady, let my spirit arrive whole." And then, they let go. Let's drift now to the desert outside Abydos, quiet, open, silver under the moon. Here, there was an old woman, who never spoke by day, not because she couldn't, but because she saved her words for the night. She said, "Words hold more power when they are whispered into sleep." Each evening, she would lie down on a reed mat, press both palms over her heart, and speak, to no one, to the dream, to the stars. She never told anyone what she dreamed, but those who slept near her said they woke with warmth in their chests. Perhaps some dreams are shared, not like stories, but like fire passed gently from one wick to another. There were even places where groups slept together not as families, but as dreamers, circles of strangers, lying on sand or smooth stone. They believed that dreams could be woven, threaded between them, like fabric. One priest called this the sleep tapestry, and when they woke they didn't describe what they saw. They described how the air had changed. It was blue when I entered, now it feels green. I heard flutes, but no one played them. I saw your face in my reflection. It didn't need to be explained, just felt. They understood what we often forget. Dreams aren't made to be solved, they're made to be held. Sometimes dreams came not as images, but as touch, a brush against the skin, a pressure on the shoulder, a weight on the chest, not heavy, but warm. They called these gifts, not from gods, not from spirits, but from the body itself, trying to speak. One craftsman told a priest, "Last night I dreamed of clay resting on my back. It didn't crush me, it shaped me." That day he created his most beautiful sculpture. He said, "The dream showed me what I could hold." And there were soundless dreams too. Yes, not silent, soundless, meaning they couldn't be heard, even within the dream, not even your own breath, just knowing without words, like the feeling of light against your skin, with your eyes closed. A dreamer named Nessie described one. "I stood in a black garden. I felt the flowers open, but I never heard them. I just knew." He called it the quiet truth, and when asked what it meant, he simply said, "That I am alive." Now let's walk into a very old home. Inside, on the wall of a sleeping room, carved carefully above the bed, let the breath carry the dream gently. Let the eyes close without fear. This wasn't a temple, it was a fisherman's hut. No gold, no scrolls, just a mat, a bowl of river stones. And that prayer, they weren't royalty, they weren't scholars, but their sleep was sacred. Their dreams mattered, because dreaming wasn't status, it was humanity. They believed that when a person slept, they were visited by themselves, not their face, not their body, but a version of them made from things that never had names. A favorite scent, the weight of their grandmother's laugh, the sound of bread crust cracking. That version, they said, was the truest one. And sometimes the dream didn't bring images. It just reconnected the soul to that self. No visions, just rest. The kind of rest that reminds you, you're enough. Some even dreamed of their future. But not like we imagine. Not dates, not prophecies, just feeling. A man who had no children dreamed of tying his sandals and looking up into a doorway where a girl was laughing. Years later, he adopted a child who laughed just like that. He said, "I met her before she was born." Another woman dreamed of being surrounded by papyrus scrolls. 10 years later, she became a teacher, never knowing how to read until she was 40. She said, "My dream knew the alphabet of my heart before I did." That's what they trusted, not exactness, but feeling, that a dream could be true, even before reality made space for it. And what of dreams that didn't belong to the dreamer? Yes, that happened too. One girl dreamed she was a falcon flying over the Nile, but when she told her mother gasped, "That was my dream. I've had it since I was a girl." And from then on, they shared it, once a month, always on the 17th night, always just before dawn. They never tried to explain it, just held it, between them, like a quiet cup of light. Some believed that dreams were echoes of unfinished stories. Not your stories, but someone else's, from another time, another name, another set of eyes. They didn't call it reincarnation. They called it echo dreaming. And when it happened, they didn't panic. They welcomed it. One scribe wrote, "I dreamed I was weaving baskets for a woman who never smiled. I think I loved her, but I wasn't me." When asked if it scared him, he said, "No, it comforted me, because someone somewhere still remembers." Tonight, that memory might be stirring in you too. Not loud, just gentle. A feeling, a doorway you've never seen but somehow know. A touch you haven't felt in years but can still recall. Don't fight it, let it wash over you. Let it whisper, not in words, but in warmth. Let the dream begin now. Without needing permission. Let your breath lengthen. Let your body loosen. Let your mind unname itself. You're not gone. You're arriving. At the place between stars and sand, where the oldest stories wait in silence, where the deepest part of you remembers everything and says nothing, just sleeps. Sometimes a dream doesn't begin with a place or a face. It begins with a temperature, cool, like river water poured over stone, or warm, like clay still drying under the sun. That was how many Egyptians described the start of their dreams. Not with color or sound, but with sensation. A priestess once wrote, "I knew I was dreaming because the air turned to silk." Silk, not something she'd ever touched. And yet, the dream gave her that texture, because dreams don't always use memory. They use truth, even when we don't have the words for it. In some scrolls, they wrote of dream entrances. Not doors, not tunnels, but events. Little moments that acted like gates. Sitting beside a candle as it burned out, listening to the rustle of wheat just before harvest, touching the feet of a statue. These were awakened silences, soft spaces where a person's soul would step sideways, just enough to meet its dream. Not every night needed one, but on nights when fear was loud, or grief was sharp, people would create a dream entrance. One old woman kept a box of tiny blue beads. Before bed, she'd pour them into a bowl, watch them settle, and say, "Let me scatter like this tonight." She never had nightmares. Only drifting, only peace. Sometimes, they dreamed in smells. Yes, not visions, not stories, just scents that wrapped around them. Gentle, deep, familiar. Baking barley, citrus warmed by sun, river water thick with reeds. One young boy named Many dreamt of cinnamon for 6 nights in a row. He told his mother and she just smiled. That was your grandfather's favorite. He's visiting you. Not a ghost, not a warning, just a scent, a memory dressed in warmth. He even had a word for it. Rihinsu. It meant the memory breath. A dream that didn't speak, but lingered, like perfume caught in old linen. Some said Rihinsu dreams were rare. Others believed we all had them. We just weren't quiet enough to notice. And in rare cases, dreams came as colors. Not of objects, but color itself. Nothing else. Just being surrounded by blue. or pressed into gold, or floating through gray, that felt safe, not sad. A temple scribe described his dream as walking through red. It wasn't fire, it was trust. Another dreamer said, she was inside a color that didn't exist during the day. She called it dusk turned backwards. When asked what it meant, she only smiled. Because some dreams weren't for telling, they were only meant to be felt. Let's go now, to a hill just outside Saqqara, where an old man slept beside a tamarisk tree every night. He had a home, but he believed the sky dreamed better when it had trees to lean against. And so for years, he lay under the same branches, and let the stars listen. He didn't speak, didn't write, didn't tell others what he saw. Only once, when he was asked by a traveler what he dreamed, he answered, I dream that I am not alone. The traveler waited for more, but there was nothing more to say. Do you know what animal dreams were? Yes. Even animals had their place in the Egyptian dreaming world. Some dreams came as jackals walking backwards, or frogs with golden eyes, or cats sitting on the chest, purring without sound. Each one had meaning, but only for the dreamer. A girl once said, I dreamed I was a turtle in a cup, but I wasn't trapped, I was floating. When her father asked what it meant, she shrugged and said, it felt like joy. That was enough. Joy doesn't always need translation. And sometimes, dreams weren't visual at all. They were questions, just one, asked in the dark, with no answer. A man named Panesi had a dream that only whispered, are you still listening? That's it. No voice, no face, no echo, just the question. He said it stayed with him for years. Whenever he felt unsure, he'd close his eyes and ask it again. Am I still listening? Dreams aren't always about meaning. Sometimes they're just mirrors, soft ones, held gently. And what of the dreams they feared? Yes, even in ancient Egypt, there were nightmares. But they didn't call them curses. They called them loud sleep. Because it wasn't the dream that hurt, it was the volume. One scribe said, the dream shouted, not with sound, but with urgency. And to calm those dreams, they didn't run from them. They invited them in. They wrote them down on palm leaves. They buried them in jars. They placed honey on the lids, so the nightmare would feed, and not return hungry. Softness, even for fear. That's something, isn't it? And now, in the stillness around you, maybe there's a color forming, or a scent, or a feeling like silk rising behind your ribs. Let it come. Don't reach. Just allow. You're not behind. You're not ahead. You're exactly where the dream needs you to be. And Finn is here. Still here, still holding the edges of the dream, so it doesn't fray, so you can sink, without falling, so you can forget, without losing, so you can rest. One last thing. A scroll once said, when the dream is gentle, the gods are not far. You don't have to see them. You don't have to know their names. Just feel. That's all sleep ever asked of you. To feel, and let go. You've done well, so let go now. Let the quiet carry you the rest of the way. You're almost there. Almost. Have you noticed how heavy your arms feel now? Not the bad kind of heavy. The kind that means, you've finally stopped carrying everything. That's what the Egyptians believed about dreams near the end of the night. They weren't just stories. They were release. Like untying ropes after the boat has reached still water. One old man wrote, in the last dream before morning, I have no name, no work, no weight, only the sky remembering that I was ever here. That was comfort, not sorrow. Because even the stars forget sometimes, and that forgetting is peace. Some dreams didn't come to show anything. They came to erase. The Egyptians called them Nech Irsa Ankh, the cleansing sleep. These were the dreams where nothing happened. No colors, no sounds, no symbols, just softness, just blackness, just rest. One woman said, I woke and thought I hadn't dreamed, but my chest felt clean, like someone had swept my heart. Isn't that a dream worth having? Let's travel now to a desert well, a place not used anymore, too far from the Nile, too dry. But a family lived nearby, and each night they walked to it together. They didn't draw water, They sat beside it, and one by one, they dropped words into it, not out loud, not written, just silent thoughts. Let me remember what joy feels like. Let the dream touch my brother. Let the night carry the weight for me. Then they went to bed. No stories, just sleep. That's how they dreamed as a family, not by sharing visions, but by whispering into the same silence. Silence, that's what many Egyptians said dreams were made of. Not motion, not ideas, but silence shaped into something beautiful. A priest once said, "The gods speak loudest when they say nothing." That's why some dream scrolls had no words at all, just lines, curved like wind, open like sky. One scroll simply showed a spiral leading into a blank space. The title, "The Dream That Needed Nothing." That might be the most sacred dream of all. They also believed that dreams could be music, not the kind you hear with your ears, but the kind your bones remember. A scribe wrote of a dream where his spine vibrated with harp strings, each note sending warmth through his chest. Another woman dreamed she was a drum, not playing one, she was the drum, felt the beat in her ribs, felt rhythm instead of breath. When she woke, she said, "I am not empty anymore." And what of dreams that blurred with waking? The dreams that felt so real, that even hours after sunrise, your skin still carries them. Those were called remembrance dreams. They were believed to leave an invisible mark, like ash on the soul. Not dirty, not heavy, just a trace, a knowing. One farmer said, "I dreamed of my wife's hand resting on mine. She died 5 years ago, but today I feel her warmth in my fingers." He didn't cry when he said it, he smiled, because the dream brought presence, not pain. That's what they called a gift dream. Some dreams, though, they felt like doors, but not doors you opened, doors that opened you. One young girl, only 9 years old, dreamed of standing in the middle of a golden circle. No one spoke to her. Nothing happened, but she said, "I think the circle knows my name." For weeks, she woke up humming a tune she had never learned. She said the dream put it inside her, and her mother believed her, because she had once dreamed the same song. So how do we explain this? The way dreams move between people, between time, between the seen and the never known? The Egyptians didn't try to. They accepted, trusted, honored, because not everything sacred needs explanation. Some things are only sacred because they are unspoken. One small village outside Thebes had a dream wall. Yes, a real wall made of clay, built near the edge of a date grove. Every month, villagers would write part of their dream on it. Not the whole dream, just one piece. A color, a word, a line, a crown made of breath, walking into a house made of drums. My father, younger than me, and after a year, the wall was covered in mysteries. None of them solved, none of them judged, just recorded. As if to say, we were here, and we dreamed. Isn't that what we all want? To be remembered, not for what we did, but for what we felt, what we loved, what we dared to see, when no one else could. We're getting close now, not to the end, but to the center, the deepest part of the dream, the part where even thought gets quiet, where you don't need stories anymore. Just breath, just rhythm, just stillness. Let yourself sink. Don't worry about what the dream will show you. Trust that whatever rises is enough, because the Egyptians believed this too. The dream you need will come, and if it doesn't, the silence will hold you until it does, and it will. The silence is strong tonight. Fiend is still here, not watching, not guiding, just holding space, so your spirit can unroll, like papyrus in the dark, soft, patient, ready for whatever comes next. No more words now, just sleep. Have you ever dreamed of something twice? Not the same picture, but the same feeling, as if the dream was remembering you. That was something ancient Egyptians deeply believed in. They called it Keshitem, the returning breath, a dream that loops back around, not to haunt, but to anchor. One man, an old grain counter in Memphis. Every winter I see a tree blooming. It's always the same tree, but I never walk to it. I just watch, and it warms me until morning. He didn't need to understand why. The warmth was enough. Some dreams repeated on purpose. People would invite them, build little habits to attract them, sleeping with a specific stone under the pillow, whispering the same word 5 times before closing their eyes, wearing a strip of linen blessed by a priest. They called these dreams seeds, small things planted in the soil of the soul, so that maybe, just maybe, the dream would bloom again. One scribe said, "I wear my sister's scarf when I sleep, because when I do, I see her in the fields again, laughing, alive." Then there were drifting dreams, ones without scenes, just movement, not flying, not running, just floating, forward, without edges. One woman described hers, "It's like being a feather in honey. I never stop, but I never feel lost." Isn't that peace? Not a destination, just gentle motion. Many Egyptians believed these dreams were messages from the Ka, the personal spirit, not showing the future, not solving problems, just reminding you, you're still here, still moving, even when you sleep. And there were tasting dreams. Yes, they dreamed in flavors. Not food. Flavors. The taste of cool keen, the sweetness of wind, before a storm, the salt of someone's skin, as they left. They didn't always explain them. They just woke up licking their lips, smiling, or crying, because sometimes taste carries memory deeper than sight. One woman tasted date syrup and roses for 7 nights in a row. On the 8th she found an old letter from her mother. Pressed inside was a dried rose. Then came the names. Yes, some dreams gave people names they had never heard, but somehow fit. One girl dreamed of being called Tufret by the stars. She didn't know the word, but later learned it meant the one who returns, and she had in so many ways. Returned to herself, returned to joy. Some said the dreams gave us our true names, the ones the world forgot, or never knew. Others dreamed of places that didn't exist, not on maps, not in stories, just real in the way only dreams can make something feel real. A temple made of smoke, a street paved with feathers, a sky that rippled like water. No explanations, just truth and softness. One young boy wrote on the edge of a clay tablet, "I go there when I'm lonely." And that was enough. Dreams don't have to be understood, they just have to be trusted. Then there were mirror dreams. Not dreams of mirrors, but dreams that reflected you back at yourself. Not how you look, but how you are. One man said, "In the dream I was a stranger, but I forgave myself, that's all. No grand story, just a moment of peace between him and him." He called it the best dream of his life. Because sometimes the gentlest thing a dream can do is hold you exactly as you are, and not ask you to change. And when the nights grew long, when sleep came slowly, when the body ached too much to rest, they would tell stories, not big ones, little dreamlets, soft-spoken, half-truths that lulled the soul into quiet. A girl's favorite was this: "Once there was a moth who couldn't fly, so the stars came down to carry her, one wing each, until she found the moon." She told it every night to her brother. He never dreamed of stars, only of wings, and that was enough. There were healing dreams too, but they didn't always cure the body. They calmed it, slowed the pain, taught it how to rest, even if it couldn't recover. One scribe, nearly blind, said, "I dream of reading every night, in gold ink, on wind." He never cried about his eyes, because in the dream he could see, and it was more than enough. A potter once dreamed of hands shaping him like clay, not hurting, just molding. He woke up feeling whole. He said, "Maybe that's all we need, to feel held by something bigger." And what was that something? The gods? The ancestors? The sleep itself? They never said, because the answer wasn't the point. The feeling was being shaped, being known, being safe. Tonight you may not dream of temples, or gold, or forgotten names. You may not fly, or taste roses, or walk into spiral gardens. But whatever comes, it will belong to you. You don't have to hold it tightly, just gently, like linen between fingers, like sand beneath water. Let it pass, let it speak, let it rest in your breath. You're almost there now. One part of you still here, another part already dreaming, and Finn, he's just a hum now, soft enough to blend with your thoughts, familiar enough to guide them, back to sleep, back to stillness, back to the place where dreams don't need to be remembered to matter. Do you know what the Egyptians said about waking up? They didn't call it ending sleep. They called it returning from the journey. Not a start, not a finish, just the continuation of a different path. And in those last minutes, before the body moved again, before the eyes opened, there was a space they cherished. It was called Hetzeret, the sacred hush, a moment when you're not asleep, not awake, but still woven in the dream's breath. That moment was considered holy, not because it taught them anything, but because it reminded them they were more than their name, more than their task, more than their time. They were carried. Let's drift gently into one of those sacred hushes now, where a small boy sits at the edge of the Nile, watching his reflection ripple. He's dreaming, but the water moves like he's awake. He doesn't speak, he doesn't smile, he simply watches, and in the dream, the river says, "You are not just yourself, you are the memory of the wind, the pause in your mother's voice, the warmth of stories told before fire. You are the breath between thoughts." That boy never forgets the dream, even when he's grown, even when he's old, because some dreams stay, even when everything else leaves. There's a woman now, sleeping in a room full of drying herbs and sunlight. She dreams of sitting in a field made of feathers. The sky is made of books. They don't open, but she knows every story inside them. One page whispers, "There is nothing left to fix." She wakes up smiling. Her back still hurts. The world is still loud, but something inside her is quiet. That's how they knew the dream had done its work. Not when life changed, but when the heart stopped clenching. Elsewhere, an old man dreams he's a stone in a basket. Nothing else. No one holds him. He's just there, still, solid, useful. When he wakes, he tells no one. But that day, he speaks with more kindness, because being a stone in a basket made him feel like he mattered. And sometimes that's all the soul needs. Let's float now to the desert's edge, where a group of dreamers lay on reed mats. Eyes closed, faces soft. They've never met, but their dreams meet each other. One sees a bird flying backwards. Another sees a necklace made of sand. A third hears a lullaby made from footsteps. When they wake, they don't speak. They just place one stone on a small pile nearby. A temple of silence. Each dream adds weight. Each stone says, "I slept, I saw, I still am." And now, the air is quieter. The space around you softer. There is nothing more you need to understand. No secret to unlock. You've seen what the Egyptians hoped for most. Not power, not riches, not even answers, but peace. The kind that grows in darkness, that hums beneath memory, that glows faintly under the ribs. They didn't dream to escape. They dreamed to return, to the self beneath the skin, to the breath beneath the words, to the light beneath the eyes, the self that needs no name, no role, no timeline, only space. So if you're still awake, then maybe your dream hasn't arrived yet, or maybe it's already here, just whispering so gently, you can't hear it, only feel it. If you are still awake, then I think you have to see the video from 17th minute of the story, or play this side video. It may help you sleep better.